Good evening everyone, my name is Usagi.
I'm Zunda.
Tonight, I'll be sharing some true Japanese scary stories.
What kind of scary story is waiting for us this time?
Today, I'll start with a short story.
If it's a short story, even our scared viewers can watch without worry.
Is that something the world's biggest scaredy cat like you should be saying?
Am I the biggest scaredy cat?
That's the truth, isn't it?
I'll prove I'm not a scaredy cat, by listening to your story without getting scared.
Alright, let's get started. In middle school, I was using the stall at the very back of the restroom. Suddenly, someone came into the restroom and knocked on the door of the stall closest to the entrance. I heard a woman's voice say, "No one's here." As I peeked outside, I heard another knock and the same voice, "No one's here." It seemed like whoever it was, they were knocking on each stall in order, starting from the entrance. I was a bit scared but also curious to see who it was, so I decided to wait and check through the small gap in the door when they reached my stall. Finally, my stall was knocked on. I slowly brought my face close to the gap in the door. And then, suddenly, it spoke.
"There you are."
I was so shocked that I collapsed to the floor. What I saw through the gap under the door was something with an upside-down head, as if it were standing on its head, peering at me with a creepy smile.
Oh no, now I'm too scared to go to the bathroom.
How about wearing a diaper then?
Usagi, come with me when I go to the bathroom from now on.
No. You either go alone or wear a diaper. Your choice.
I can't choose.
The next story is called, The Running Man.
Is it about a man who jogs for his health?
Why would I tell that kind of story here?
Usagi, you should exercise once in a while.
No way. I hate exercise.
That's why you have no stamina.
I'm getting mad now. One day, I was at a video rental store, looking for something interesting. In the back of the store, I found a video with a plain package that only said The Running Man. It was covered in dust, as if no one had rented it for a long time. Well, it's only 100 yen, so it should be fine for killing time, I thought, and I rented it. When I got home, I immediately played the video. Without any title screen, it suddenly showed a skinny man in ragged clothes, like a homeless person, running. Huh? He's holding something. It's a saw. Why would he be holding a saw? Even though the man was running at full speed, he wasn't out of breath, and he wasn't even sweating. His pace didn't slow down at all. Wait. This guy. Isn't he running down a road I recognize? I started to feel uneasy. I have a bad feeling about this. Wait, this road. If he turns that corner. My unease turned to certainty in the next cut. Oh, I knew it. This man was heading for my house. But before I could process this, the man had already arrived right in front of my house. At some point, the camera had switched to the man's point of view. The screen showed the old apartment building where I lived, focusing on the second floor where my unit was. Panicking, I rushed to my balcony and looked outside. And there he was. The man started cutting the support pillar of my balcony with the saw, without hesitation. I had no idea what was going on, but I yelled at him, "Hey! What the hell are you doing? Stop that!" The man looked up at me. I gasped. What I couldn't see on the screen was that the man's eyes were like a chameleon's, pointing in different directions. Then he bared his jagged teeth in a grin and disappeared from sight, only for me to hear the sound of him running up the stairs. Oh no! He's coming here. I remembered that I hadn't locked the front door. I rushed to the entrance, but the man was already there. He cornered me in the living room, raising the saw. In a panic, I grabbed the remote and hit the stop button. In that instant, the man vanished. The saw was gone too. I immediately pulled the tape out of the VCR and threw it in the trash. On the balcony support pillar, deep saw marks remained.
Wait, this guy was just watching a video, right?
He should have been, but it somehow became real.
VCRs may be gone, but did that ghost switch to Netflix?
How should I know? The next story is also about an apartment.
If I hear any more, I won't be able to go home.
First, let me start by saying that I don't have any spiritual sense or anything like that. In fact, I never believed in supernatural phenomena and would even mock people who did. When my classmates would start talking about ghost stories in the summer, I would listen in annoyance. A few years ago, I moved away from my hometown and started living alone. I used to live in the city, but I always wanted to experience living alone in the countryside. I found a good job and a cheap apartment, and finally, I was able to live my dream. The pay was lower than what I would earn in the city, but the cost of living here was much cheaper, so it wasn't a big issue. Plus, the fresh air here was something you could never experience in the city. I was glad to be living alone. After a few days, I started hearing strange noises coming from the entrance of my apartment. It was probably just after midnight. I was young, so staying up late was normal for me, but since I had work, I usually didn't stay up that late. The sound was like something hard scraping against metal, like someone was scratching the door with a stone. I thought it might be some kids playing a prank, but no kids would be out at that time of night. So, it had to be something else, maybe a suspicious person. I thought about calling the police, but by the time I picked up my phone, the sound had already stopped. I thought maybe it was just my imagination and decided to go to bed. The next morning, I checked the door, but there were no scratches or any signs of damage. So, I didn't think much of it and eventually forgot about it. A few months passed, and I heard the noise again. At first, I didn't remember, but then I quickly realized it was the same sound. This time, I immediately called the police. "I think someone is scratching my door," I reported. A few minutes later, the police arrived. The sound had continued the whole time, so I thought the culprit would still be there. But when I went outside at the sound of the sirens, the noise had stopped, and no one was there. The police looked puzzled, but I insisted, I definitely heard scratching noises. I wasn't hallucinating or anything, but it was creepy, and I wanted the culprit caught as soon as possible. The police couldn't find anything that day, but the next day, and the day after that, the sound continued. The first time, it didn't happen in consecutive days, but now I was getting really worried. I considered calling the police again, but I was afraid the culprit might escape again. The best way to catch them was to open the door while the noise was still happening. That's what I thought, so I carefully, silently approached the entrance. As soon as I confirmed the noise was still there, I unlocked and flung open the door. The noise was still there right before I opened the door, so there was no way anyone could have escaped. Plus, there wasn't anywhere near the door for someone to hide, it was right by the road, so if they ran, I would have seen them. I was ready to see their face if they ran. But when I opened the door, no one was there. I checked around, but there was no sign of anyone hiding or running away. There was no way it was just my imagination. I had definitely heard someone scratching the door. I wished I had some evidence, so I checked the door. I should have mentioned earlier, but the door was metal and black, so any scratch would be easy to see. The door had been replaced right before I moved in, so it was brand new when I first moved in. If there were any scratches, I would have noticed them right away. I looked up and down, but I didn't see any scratches. I was about to give up when I finally found some evidence. In the corner of the door, in a place that was hard to see, there were lots of scratches. They looked like some kind of writing, but not really. Maybe like hieroglyphs, but even stranger. It was just some nonsensical symbols. I thought, with this, the police will believe me, so I called them with confidence this time. After waiting a few minutes, the police arrived. When I showed them the scratches, they took me seriously this time. They told me that the previous tenant had reported similar things, but the police didn't take it seriously back then either, so they handled it the same way as when I first called. The officer said, it could be an animal or maybe a stalker, but I was still uneasy. If it were an animal or a stalker, I would have seen someone running away. If I opened the door, they would naturally flee, and it would be strange not to see anyone. For the first time in my life, I started to think that maybe supernatural phenomena do exist. The police said they would increase patrols in the area, but deep down, I felt that wouldn't solve anything. The sound continued the next day and the day after that, and I was reaching my limit. The noise was driving me crazy, and I couldn't sleep. By this point, I was so paranoid that I felt like I had no one to rely on. I wished I had a security camera at the entrance, but since it was a cheap apartment, there was no such equipment. But I was so bothered that I used my saved up salary to buy a digital camera and decided to record the entrance. Even on the day I set up the camera, I heard the noise, so I thought it would definitely be captured on the camera. To be honest, I even started to think, maybe I'll capture some supernatural phenomena. I thought, if I catch something, I'll upload it to YouTube. I felt safe knowing the camera was set up, and I finally got a good night's sleep. The next morning, I went to retrieve the camera as soon as I woke up. I was a bit excited to see what I had captured, but what I saw was the worst thing imaginable. Honestly, I wished I hadn't seen it. The one scratching the door was a woman, probably in her teens or 20s. I was shocked and kept watching, and then the woman started to scratch something into the corner of the door with a stone. Feeling sick, I stopped watching and called the police. I showed them the video, and they agreed to stake out near my house that night. Around midnight, I heard the noise again, and soon after, I heard the police outside the door. I also heard the woman's voice, so I thought they had caught her. I opened the door. I was taken to the police station, where they explained everything. The woman was apparently my stalker. I didn't understand why, but I was relieved that the noise would finally stop. I didn't talk to the stalker, and I didn't know who she was, but I guessed she might have seen me at work or at the local supermarket and started stalking me. Anyway, I thought the noise would stop now, so I decided to go to bed early for the first time in a while. I had been sleep deprived for so long, so I thought it was the perfect chance to catch up on rest. But around midnight that night, I heard the noise again. Honestly, I thought, no way. The stalker woman should have been arrested and was at the police station, so there was no way she could be here unless she escaped. Besides, the police station was in the neighboring town, so it was impossible for her to walk all the way here. Since I didn't have the camera rolling, I couldn't find out who was scratching the door. But somehow, I felt that this was something I shouldn't get involved with, so I ignored it and tried to go back to sleep. I didn't end up sleeping at all, but I think the noise continued until dawn. I don't know how long it lasted because it stopped by the time I noticed. The noise showed no signs of stopping, so I finally decided to move. I didn't want to give up living alone, so I found another apartment in the same city and moved there. The rent was a bit higher than at the previous place, but it was better than sleepless nights. I still don't know what was causing that noise. But even now, when I go to bed at night, I sometimes get anxious, wondering if I'll hear that sound again. It continued almost every day, so the thought that it might happen tonight keeps me up at night. Do you think the sound was caused by a stalker, or maybe a ghost?
I think it was probably the work of a stalker, but the sound continued even after the stalker was arrested, right?
Yes, that's right.
I mean, I get it. There were multiple stalkers. The sound was made by a different stalker after the first one was caught.
If that's true, then it's a scary story in a different way. The next story is a short one, titled Your Future is Too Dark for Me to See.
What kind of story could that be?
A few years ago. It might sound like a bad hobby, but I used to enjoy messing with fortune tellers with my friends. Fortune telling is easy to figure out if you study a bit of psychology. Most fortune tellers just say things that apply to everyone, or they analyze the client's belongings and behavior, making it seem like they know something mystical. If they attribute it to the mysterious power of a crystal or cards, people who lack knowledge are easily fooled. The technique of analyzing behavior, in particular, can be so skillfully done that it gives the illusion they can read your mind. By the way, scammers often use this technique, so you should be careful. My friend and I used to turn the tables on these tricks and have fun confusing the fortune tellers. One day, by chance, a famous fortune teller came to a place near where I lived. Of course, my friend and I decided to visit this fortune teller. "Tell me my future." My friend handed over some money and said this, and the fortune teller began to stare seriously at the crystal ball in their hands. I was thinking, they're probably just going to make small talk while looking at the crystal, analyzing the information they gather. That's how every fortune teller we had messed with so far had operated. But that expectation was shattered in an instant. The fortune teller looked at the crystal for about 5 seconds and then said, "I'm sorry, but your future is too dark for me to see." They returned the money to us as they said this. We left feeling uneasy. 2 days later, my friend died in a car accident.
So your future is too dark to see meant that.
It seems that fortune teller was the real deal.
What should I do? My horoscope for today was bad.
You probably don't need to worry about that. Alright, let's call it a day. Zunda, what did you think of the stories this time?
That stalker story was terrifying. It feels like something that could actually happen in real life.
We should be careful.
I guess I need to get a .44 Magnum.
Guns aren't available in Japan.
I want to hear more scary stories.
Sure? I'll call you again when I have more scary stories to tell. Subscribe to the channel. That way, we can meet again in the next video.
See you later, alligator.